Perhaps the most significant implication of the holographic principle is that the universe is being continuously created.
Truth that is underlying it comes to us from M theory, because it has such rich intersection with spirituality. The physical universe couldn't exist if this vast reservoir of higher frequency energy didn't also exist. This vast reservoir of energy is made up of vibrating rings and strings of energy that are as much smaller than the atom is smaller than the human body. The other thing that the multi-layer brain scenarios give is a different view of the creation of the universe. And this is where we get the holographic principle. The physical universe is projected from this vast ocean of energy. And that in this vast ocean of energy is the hologram, the ordered template, the movie, if you will, that is then broadcast as the physical universe.
I have been looking forward to this for a long time. Really, really like your work. Everybody that catches this must go out and buy not only The Physics of God, but also Break Through the Limits of Your Brain, which is your latest book. Can you tell us, please, a little bit about who you are?
I have been a disciple of, follower of, believer in the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda for almost 50 years. And Yogananda appealed to me in many ways, but in one way in particular was because he brought science into the teachings of spirituality. And he really was the pioneer of that in terms of the intersection of Western science and Eastern spirituality. So that was part of what drew me into those teachings. And then the other thing that it drew me into was living for almost the last 50 years in spiritual community, which is, in my case, the Ananda community in Northern California, although Ananda has grown to have communities all over the world. So that's kind of my background and my passions.
You obviously love writing. When did you start actually publishing your first book?
The first book that came out sort of officially was a book called The Yugas, and it came out in 2010. And it's about the theory of a cyclical development of civilization rather than the typical Darwinian straight line of evolution approach that is most commonly accepted today. But there is a lot of evidence that supports there was a higher age in the past and many higher ages in the past that are superior to the time we have today. So that's the foundation of that book. And then The Physics of God in 2017, I believe Break Through the Limits of the Brain came out just last year, 2022.
Wonderful. I want to just read a sentence or two from my copy of Physics of God. Like many readers, I go through books and kind of earmark as I find interesting pages.
Uh-huh.
And what I realized was that actually I really wanted to earmark every, turn down the corner of every page, quite frankly. And then I got to page 83, which I ended up not only turning down the corner of, but also turning down the whole edge of it and turning down the bottom corner, because I had thought this is the crux of, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely everything. Now, you might not necessarily agree with that, but I'd like to talk about around this concept.
Mm-hmm.
It means that we'll have to go back and talk about the holographic principle, but you write wonderfully. Perhaps the most significant implication of the holographic principle is that the universe is being continuously created, in italics. I'm going to say that again. It's just that one sentence. Perhaps the most significant implication of the holographic principle is that the universe is being continuously created. That sentence is one of the fundamental shifts of awareness for people when they realize the big difference between that statement and the way that we traditionally think of the Earth as being a static, this environment, in fact, I won't say the Earth, this environment in which we live as being a static thing that has been here forever, quote unquote. That's a massive shift. Are you able to kind of talk a little bit about the way that you see that, that sentence that I read out, in terms of how that applies to people on a day-to-day basis, if that makes sense?
Well, first, let me completely agree with you that that is an extremely significant difference in the way most people see and envision and conceive of the world around them. That the most common vision of how the world works is that it was created in the Big Bang 13 billion years ago. And once it was created, it kind of just began to run, almost like if you wind up a clock and let it run, and it just goes and it follows laws that are built into it. And those laws make the material universe unfold in a particular way, which eventually led to a planet like the Earth. And then on the planet, life began, and that too unfolded to all sorts of laws until we got to where we are today. And that we're just perpetually unfolding from this moment of creation that happened once, billions and billions of years ago. And there is still a truth to that, but there is another level of truth underlying it. And the truth that is underlying it comes to us from M theory. M theory is my favorite theory of physics to explain, because it has such rich intersection with spirituality, more so than any other discipline within physics that I am aware of. So M theory, to give it an overview, so it makes more sense to come back to continuous creation. M theory is a string theory. And what it has in common with other string theories is the notion that there is a vast amount of energy present in reality that is invisible to current scientific instruments. And yet that vast amount of energy is the foundation of the physical universe. That the physical universe couldn't exist if this vast reservoir of higher frequency energy didn't also exist. So string theory explores what that vast reservoir of energy is in various ways. One of the common connections is that this vast reservoir of energy is made up of vibrating rings and strings of energy that are as much smaller than the atom is smaller than the human body. So it's incredibly fine level of vibration. And it also goes to one of the core differences between relativity and quantum physics. Quantum physics needs for there to be more energy than can be measured within the physical universe. Relativity is happy with the amount of energy that can be measured in the physical universe. All its laws and the laws of gravity all work well with the amount of energy that can be measured with current scientific instruments. But quantum physics requires massive amounts of energy in order for its equations to make sense. And that hidden energy, that missing energy, according to string theory, exists beyond the physical universe. It exists in what physicists very unromantically and unexcitingly call the bulk. And I renamed the bulk. I may be unique in this, but what made much more sense to me was to call it the energy verse. We have the universe and we have the energy verse. The universe includes matter. The energy verse is pure energy, pure high frequency energy. Now, M theory is a particular discipline within string theory that conceives of that vast universe of energy of being made up in layers of what they refer to of branes, B-R-A-N-E-S. And these different brain layers are separate from each other only by the fact that each layer exists at a higher frequency or lower frequency than the other, therefore making its overall energy density greater or lesser. And M theory suggests that there could be as few as 4 or 5 of these brain layers, or as many as 10 or more. The reason why they have these different number of layers is because of the mathematics, the various approaches to the mathematics that support the existence of this realm at all. This gives us some fascinating possibilities, which I'll come back to in a bit. But the other thing that the brain scenarios, the multi-layer brain scenarios give is a different view of the creation of the universe. And this is where we get the holographic principle. The notion that the universe is a holographic projection has been around for decades, but most people don't actually realize it originated from M theory or from other string theories, but it was particularly important to M theory. And it is central to M theory. It's not just a peculiar byproduct of the theory that may or may not exist, but it's actually central to the entire theory of M theory. And that what it says, in a nutshell, is the physical universe is projected from this vast ocean of energy. And that in this vast ocean of energy is the hologram, the ordered template, the movie, if you will, that is then broadcast as the physical universe. This is mind-blowing for people, and it is still not, like widely understood or widely embraced because of how challenging it is to embrace this notion that the entire physical universe in all its vastness, there's so many times you hear people talk about just how mind-manglingly large the physical universe is. To imagine that that is just one physical universe being projected from a much vaster, pure energy realm is hard to take in. But it does several things, one of which is, as you point out, it suggests fundamentally that our physical universe is continuously created. It isn't something that had a beginning and then just runs like a clock that was wound up, but in fact is continuously being formed from the holographic information that exists outside the physical universe. So this lays the groundwork for many things, one of which is that the intelligent order of the hologram that forms our physical universe is divine intelligence, higher intelligence. It also suggests that our bodies are holographic projections, and that the template or hologram for our body exists outside the physical universe. And all of these things dovetail extremely well with many experiential spiritual teachings that suggest we have an astral body or a subtle body. It's sometimes called an etheric body or a spirit body. But this whole idea that we have a interpenetrating, interconnected other body that is more subtle and yet is more primary to the existence of the physical body is essential to things like how we heal, how it's possible that our thoughts and our feelings can profoundly affect the physical body, which if you just look at the physical body with none of this connection to anything more subtle or anything more energetic, it's the body as a physical, purely physical entity gives no possibility for subtle healing. It gives no real possibility that emotions could be any more than just a glancing effect on the physical body. It gives no possibility that thoughts could have any thing other than a glancing influence on the physical body. That the physical body is just this thing, and that it's made up of molecules and atoms that have been studied by medicine today don't change very fast. They don't change much at all. But when you add in the subtle body, when you add in an astral body, which is, the same thing, subtle, astral, etheric, spirit, there I'm referring to in all of those, the same notion, then it opens up the possibility that if the subtle body changes, the physical body changes automatically. It is the template that is projecting the holographic projection that is our body, so our physical body. So if that hologram changes, the physical body changes instantaneously. And this can explain many of the disciplines of what is generally lumped together as alternative healing. It can explain why the work you do works. It can explain homeopathy. It can explain acupuncture. All of the alternative healing modalities that can't be explained by today's medical science can be explained when you add in this dimension that M theory gives to reality. It also opens up a huge door of understanding to why there can be life after death. So our astral body existing and creating our physical body suggests that our astral body has an existence that continues when the physical body dies. And in these different brain realms of the M theory's view of this vast, purely energetic realm, we could exist after death. And in fact, it dovetails very well with many, many conceptions coming to us from religions or from experiential spirituality of there being heavens, and that the heavens are multi-layered. They exist not just in one monolithic realm, but that there are higher and lower heavens. In Christianity, there's the highest heavens, there's the third heaven, there's the first heaven. In Buddhism, there are 15 and 20 heavens. In Hinduism, we have 7 heavens. All of these, if not dovetail exactly, they certainly are congruent with M theory's notion of multiple brain layers, each of which being at a higher energy density than the one before it. So M theory gives us a location for the heavens. It gives us the notion of an astral body, which gives us the possibility of life after death. It gives us the possibility of reincarnation. So it again, is speaking personally, the most amazing intersection with experiential spiritual traditions and physics, science in general.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I actually had a question here that was phrased as, what's your favorite aspect of all that you have learned? And you started that with, your favorite aspect is M theory, which I thought was rather lovely. Superb description. And what I really, really love, and what I really want to emphasize for those people watching, is that how well you actually verbalize, not only verbalize in speaking, but in your books, the way that you illustrate, the way that you put across very complex ideas, like you've just described, about the energy verse literally intermixing with our realm, the way that you describe it in the physics of God, it's very, very simple, it's very understandable, it's really easy to grasp, and you knock down all of these incredibly complex notions with some fantastically simple kind of concepts that is like, yes, of course, that's a brilliant way to describe it. So I really liked that about the book, and that's partly why I really am keen that everybody that's watching this goes out and buys a copy. Just thought I'd reiterate that again. Do you think, one of the things you said there was one universe projected from the energy verse? That's the way that we see our existence in the physical realm. Do you think that there is any science anywhere that even hints at the possibility of the fact that we might individually, uniquely inhabit one universe each? Now, you probably haven't heard that as a question before. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, well, it kind of connects to the thought that we create our own reality, and that what we experience, like right now, I'm in a room and there's no one else in it. And according to basic quantum physics, this room doesn't exist unless I'm observing it, which is hard to take in if that's a new thought to you. So, I mean, not to you or to any of your listeners and viewers, but it is, again, just as the holographic principle is fundamental to M theory, this notion that the physical world doesn't take form unless it's observed is fundamental to quantum physics. So if you take that and extrapolate it, it suggests that each one of us is creating a world that is unique to us. Now, does it have to extend to the notion that each one of us is creating their own universe? I'm not sure it needs to. It also, I don't know, tends to go against what I think is the fundamental nature of each one of us, that we have free will. So I'm not sure I can get you to manifest in my universe just because you existed in some other universe that I might have, budded off of and created my own unique one. So I tend to think we share a universe, but we share a reality, I don't want to even limit it to one universe. We share a reality, but that each one of us plays a role in our co-creation of that reality.
Right. So really, yeah, it's pulling it. I suppose it is pulling at that we create our own reality thread, and maybe I've taken it to as well. Certainly, I wasn't aware of any science as such that supported my thinking along that route, but absolutely, the way that I feel. And interestingly, okay, sorry, I've got several questions that I actually want to ask you and run by you. But so one of the things that you said there was that if we're sharing an experience, then clearly there could be some input from my reality into yours. And again, where do we kind of sort of come into what I'm trying to get to, which is, we can either go into this fairly low level, which is say, okay, yes, well, we're co-creating the reality. We're sharing a reality right now, obviously the two of us and whoever is later watching the recording. In the healing work, and you'll know this, when you were referring to M theory earlier on and talking about the potential instantaneous change that can occur within the body, you were directing the healing as being self-healing primarily, and what we just said just now was that could I actually impact your reality? But in a way, that's what remote healing is, isn't it? Is a person acting as a point of reference for the powers from the energy verse that can affect your reality. Do you see what I mean? So, so if I'm just bear with me a sec. So in that sense, there is an exchange. There's a constant flow, isn't there, between us sharing realities. And in fact, yes, you're right to say, let's not use the word universe in that kind of conversation, because it actually is just the experience of the reality that we're having moment by moment, which is a completely different thing again for people to get their heads around, which is that actually you just do away with the idea of the physical being at all stationary in the sense of it is unchanging, which again comes back to that classic sentence that we started the conversation with. Let me bring it back to something that you'll be maybe perhaps a little bit more comfortable, and unless you have any thoughts on my meanderings of that last couple of minutes.
Well, there was one point that I wanted to make, and I'm going to correct a misconception that people tend to have and admit to almost always having the same misconception myself, even though I know it's, a misconception. It's very easy to think of this astral body as being somewhere else. We've talked about this vast energy realm from which the universe is projected. But that projection process happens by that realm being interpenetrating at every point in the physical universe that it creates. So our astral bodies, our energy bodies, interpenetrate our physical bodies at every point as well. And the reason why it's so easy to just kind of misvisualize that, I guess is a better way to say it rather than misconceive it, is that we're so used to things having to occupy space. So if we have one body that is a physical body, and yet we have this other body, how can it possibly be anywhere but somewhere else? But in reality, our astral body is as much with us in the moment and present exactly where we are as the physical body is. And that is hard for our minds to grasp. So the reason why I wanted to bring that up is just so that to kind of connect what you were saying, that if you as a healer affect my astral body from your astral body, then my physical body is instantaneously changed. And whether it's you affecting me and causing that change, or from within myself affecting that change, the principle is the same, that it is astral first, and then it manifests as the physical.
Yeah, which absolutely takes us into the whole kind of materialist view of science and non-materialist view of science, which clearly dear Dr. Amit Goswami is so keen on promoting the non-material viewpoint. And in fact, I was staggered. I kind of came at it all from that point of view on the assumption that that was the way it was. And then when I realized that most of science was based on the material world, I was staggered. It was like, what? How could they come from that idea, from that concept of the material world being the dominant force? I just want to see if we could just wrap into. I know that this is a subject that you could talk about for a long time, and I don't want to keep you too long. But can you touch on and help us understand? And I think this relates to exactly what you just described, which is the fact that the astral body doesn't necessarily need to be conceived of as befitting a space. Can you touch on the idea of entanglement, what entanglement is, and perhaps maybe link that into, I said this is a big question, linked into some of maybe David Bohm's interpretation of quantum mechanics?
Entanglement is the where to start. There's many places.
Sorry, I do apologize.
Right. Well, I was going to make a jump into M theory with that. So the mechanism by which our astral body is interpenetratingly connected to our physical body is entanglement. So entanglement is an effect, really, of the way in which quantum reality connects to physical reality. And I hesitate to call something quantum reality, but it is, it suggests something. But the reason why I hesitate is because it just is reality, and you can talk about it from quantum terms or physical terms or any other. But in a nutshell, the way that physicists discovered or proved the principle of entanglement was by twinning a photon, by cutting a photon in half, sounds bizarre, and having it result in two photons of lesser energy levels. But because they were, cut, if you will. I don't want to go too much into that. It's done literally with mirrors, not smoke and mirrors, but it's literally done with mirrors. And those two photons can be sent in opposite directions. Because of the laws of quantum physics that state that there are characteristics of every particle that can be measured, but once measured, they're fixed. What they have shown with entanglement is that as soon as you create those two photons, one will have one property and the other will have its opposite. So it's really kind of a misnomer to call them twins. They're actually opposites. They're opposite twins. The fascinating part about entanglement is not that those characteristics will be opposite, but that when one half of the sketch, one photon is measured, the other half will automatically take on the opposite measurement, no matter how far apart they are. So if one photon is miles away when the other photon is measured, it will instantaneously be the opposite type of quality. And this appears to defy the speed of light. So the speed of light would take a little bit of time. It's not much time, but it would take a little bit of time to travel those miles. But in experiments in entanglement, the other particle takes on its qualities basically instantaneously, faster than the speed of light. And that theoretically, you could send those two photons to opposite sides of the galaxy or the opposite sides of the universe, and they would still take on their quality instantaneously. So in order to get around this problem of it seeming to send information from one photon to the other faster than the speed of light, what quantum physics has realized is that there is this other reality. It's the reality we talked about in string theory. It's a reality that it's often referred to as non-locality, that it is a reality that behaves differently than the reality in which we exist in our physical universe. And that until one of the photons is observed, it exists completely in this non-local reality. And in that non-local reality, covering a lot of ground here, in that non-local reality, there is no distance. And so as soon as one photon is observed, it takes on its properties, and it is not, there is no distance between it and the other photon for that instant. But then the other photon, because the first one was measured, takes on its properties wherever it happens to appear in local reality. So it goes from a distanceless, non-local reality where it's then measured, brought into reality, and then both of them appear in local reality. It's mind-bending, and I'm trying hard to explain it in words without the usual handy diagrams or book length room to describe it. But that notion that one photon is inextricably entangled with the other really proves this notion that our astral body is inextricably entangled with our physical body. All the elements of our astral body are inextricably entangled with our physical body. And it's that information that can pass from one to the other, that is the essence of the holographic principle.
Wonderful. Joseph, you are a magician with words and concepts. Thank you so much. And for people that didn't understand what you were talking about, they will find out if they read your books, which I heartily recommend. Again, thank you very, very much. We didn't mention David Bohm, but perhaps one day you'll be able to have some time and you could come back and talk to us some more about that side of things as well. But
happy to come back and cover more ground.
Yeah, you are a star. Don't ever forget that. Thank
Thank
you
you
very much.
And thanks for having a program that allows me to share with people.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. More of this and more, that as much as we can get out to help people really understand the big difference and to help them realize the importance of their choices. That's really what it's all about.
It is.